And welcome back to the Cover 3 podcast here on CBS Sports. That's Tom Fornelli. That's Danny Kanell. I'm Chip Patterson coming to you live at youtube.com/cover3 and everywhere you get your podcasts on demand. Thanks for hanging out. Smash that subscribe, smash that like, and come and join us in the chat, a.k.a. the Cover 3 Tailgate, where Zach is bringing up a pertinent question that will get us rocking and rolling here on a Wednesday. Lots to get to. We are going to do a look at the Heisman Trophy race as we've got the finalists finally announced. Transfer portal buzz is buzzing. Some coaching carousel catch up as West Virginia appears to be nearing the end of it. Some interesting news from state legislature from your favorite government reporters here on the Cover 3 podcast. Conference expansion, day trading, Danny. Maybe some bowl talk if we've got a little bit of time as well. But Zach says, Chip, is UNC the new Tennessee in regard to coaching search chaos? You are not the first. You are not the second. You might be the fifth person I've heard reference the Tennessee Greg Schiano search as one that has come to mind with what's going on. So, yes, the latest on North Carolina and Bill Belichick. There's no latest. You got anything here? But Danny, what at this point, as you were processing it and as we're having to continually discuss, I enjoyed our conversation on Saturday morning where you even were able to bring up your own experience. It says, if this is to happen, here would be the challenges for Bill Belichick. As we're now several days separated from that, several news reports, a Pat McAfee appearance, a Manning cast appearance, and then, as we're continually working our way through, do you have a good sense of where this thing is headed?
No, I have no idea where this is headed, much like I did with Tennessee when they were all over the map. By the way, I've seen a lot of people making that joke. This pales in comparison to Tennessee's coaching search. Like, this is interesting. It's going off a little bit off the rails. That was absolutely gonzo. Like, we're talking about a coach was hired, a radio host makes a petition and, pounds the table, says we can't hire him. There's dirt that's drug up on Greg Schiano going back to his time at Penn. Like,
I was going to say, we don't have anytime you invoke the name Jerry Sandusky as part of a coaching search, it's a different level of crazy. Yeah,
we have not seen Bill Belichick, the character assassination attempt, come up yet. I don't think that happens. That was a whole nother level. Back to your point. So the more I've thought about this, because when Tom Brady's on there and they're making fun of it, like, how could you picture Nick Saban in college and, hey, and he's like, well, we don't even want you here. The one thing that I think bothers a lot of people, and this bothered me when I was, getting recruited, because you see a lot of people that you see a completely different person, the person that recruited you and the person that you play for. And we had an offensive line coach named Brad Scott, who eventually became head coach after he left us at South Carolina. One of the nicest, best recruiters you could ever have. On the field, he was the meanest SOB there was as a coach. Like, it was a shock. Everybody was like, wait a second, who is that guy? They did not recognize him. My point is, I don't think Belichick is going to fake it, which will, of course, he's not going to get the 5-star that wants to be called every day. But you know what he is going to be able, if he takes the job, you know what he is going to get? Some players that want to be coached by a 6-time Super Bowl winning coach who they know is going to coach them and yell at them and be hard on them. Like, there won't be any surprises. So I'm not bothered as much by that. Like, how could you envision him coaching? I think he's going to be who he is. I think he'd be a great coach who would maximize the talent on the roster. So I'm not that, I think it still could be a good hire, but we'll see if it actually happens.
I think it'd be a terrible hire. I mean, he's 72. Like, he's going to be there for 2 years, and he's just pretty much.
Steve?
That's what I'm saying. He's setting it up for his son. So he's not. You're hiring Steve Belichick if you hire Bill Belichick. Let's be real. Like, that's what you're actually going to get. But more than that, like, as far as the possibility of this happening, clip it, save it. I might look like an absolute moron. Nothing new, but. When was the last time you heard a coach mentioned for a job opening for like a week? And then that coach was going on to multiple appearances, kind of talking about it, but not talking about it, and then ended up getting the job. Like, if UNC wanted to hire Bill Belichick, guess what? They would have hired Bill Belichick already. They wouldn't have dragged it out. They wouldn't have sat there reading through his 400-page manifesto, apparently, of how he's going to do things if you put him in charge. Like, to me, just the overall vibe, and Chip, you know better than me, so stop me if I'm wrong and call me a moron. The overall vibe of how North Carolina has approached its football program throughout its entire history is completely opposite of how Bill Belichick approaches football. So it doesn't make any sense from a cultural fit. It doesn't make any sense from a coaching fit, because I'm not going to sit here and tell you Bill Belichick isn't a brilliant football coach. He is. But a lot of football coaches understand scheme. They understand X's and O's. Bill Belichick has never coached at the college level. His father did at Navy. That's not the same thing as what you'll be dealing with at North Carolina.
He at North Carolina for like 2 to 3 seasons. Have you seen the photo of little Bill in Kenan Stadium?
It's a completely different landscape now. And Bill Belichick is not going to be wanting to put in the work to do all the recruiting that you have to do. So, yeah, Danny, certain players would love to play for Bill Belichick. But the players you're going to need to actually win football games are not going to want to do it, because he's not going to woo them. Like you said, he's not going to get the 5-star players. And also, as great as he is, what's his record with and without Tom Brady? Because last I checked, Tom Brady left Bill Belichick and won a Super Bowl. After Tom Brady left Bill, he didn't win anything. He
dragged Mac Jones to the playoffs, right? Like he had some coaching.
Matt Castle was 11-5. That's always the one.
The one season, but he's won like 45% of his games in his career as a coach without Tom Brady.
But to your point about like how because I will jump in on that real quick. The hire of Bill Belichick, if some of the reporting around Bill Belichick's demands or plans are met and followed through, would be a wholesale change to how North Carolina spends, invests, and prioritizes football. Because it would be taking the spending for staffing, the spending for your resources, the spending on players, and ratcheting it up to the point where instead of being like 4th in the ACC, top 40 nationally, you'd all of a sudden be on the level of Florida State, which invests more in football than any other program in the Atlantic Coast Conference. Florida State's like top 15, like they sort of in that 10 to 15 range. And this is, again, if North Carolina is willing to totally go all in on this for 3-4 years of Bill Belichick and then Steve after that, it would be wholesale changing the way the university treats the football program. It sounds to me like the 400-page Bible, which I've heard called the Tar Heel Talmud. Actually, I've heard that it basically sets up a situation where Bill says, okay, I would like 2 staffs. I would like one staff that is entirely built out for, going out there and recruiting, general manager, roster construction. I would like unprecedented NIL investment for North Carolina that would rank, among the best in the entire country and certainly in the ACC, which to me, to like simplify it, is him saying, yeah, if you buy me a team, me and all my famous coaching buddies can coach them up. Mm-hmm. And to which I say, what's that going to get you? Right? I mean, it could get you those 10, 11 wins. And Bubba Cunningham has even said, like, yeah, we can turn in 7, 8 win seasons. How do we get to that 10, 11 win mark consistently? How do we make it so we don't pop for an ACC championship just once every 5 years, but we like all of a sudden are in contention with a little bit more consistency? If North Carolina believes that what Bill Belichick can set in place, where one staff does the roster, one staff does the ball coaching, and we can buy a team, if they believe that that can get them that on a consistent level, then that would be the reason why Bill Belichick is hired. Now, whether North Carolina is willing to hand over the reins of the athletic department and like whether there are enough checks being cut to be able to meet all of those expectations, I think that's why we have the situation we have where Bill Belichick's camp is like, the ball is in North Carolina's court. And North Carolina is like, we believe we've made a fair offer. We await to hear from Bill Belichick. And then it's gone silent because right now there's just a gap in terms of what the expectations are going to be.
Neither side wants each other. Let's be real.
I think there's half
there are
of one
important
side,
people at North Carolina that love the idea of Bill Belichick.
which is a problem because the other half at North Carolina, I think, wants no part of it.
But like, let's read the reports coming from NFL people. No NFL team is interested in Bill Belichick. Belichick is legitimately surprised he's received so little interest from NFL teams who are going to have openings. He's the greatest coach in the history of the NFL, but no NFL team wants to hire him. Should that not be a red flag for North Carolina? Or is he just using this trying to get his name in the conversation so maybe an NFL team says, you know what, Belichick still wants to do it.
But here's what he wants. He wants control. That's exactly why we're having this discussion now, is because Carolina might be the one that says, sure, you can pick your personnel, which in today's NFL and given his track record post Tom Brady and even in any draft, they're like, nope. The NFL saying, forget it. We might consider you for a coach, but I don't think I think he wants full control. I think this is all part of leverage and negotiation. I wanted to say something about the 400-page manifesto, the Bible of sorts. I think the only reason that's, unique or getting talked about is because it's Bill Belichick. I would venture most coaches have a book that they have that is thick, that is a list of schedules, notes.
This is how we run practice. This is what
every day. I vividly remember I sat down with James Franklin when he was at Maryland under Ralph Friedgen, and I was like, are you ready? What steps are you? And he was like, he got all dramatic and he's like, am I ready? He's like, he pulled out a black binder like this and like threw it on the table. He goes, this is every day from, the moment the season ends to training camp to off-season workouts, all this. I mean, every single day they have mapped out. So, I think it's gotten a lot of attention because it's Belichick. I would venture most coaches have a similar, black book, blue book, whatever it is, that is loaded with notes, material, schedules. And then you add in there, your staff, who you would want to hire, your dream hires. You put resumes in there. But I don't think it's that unique. Everyone's like, oh, this is Belichick. I think most coaches have something similar.
You know who I don't think has that? Any new coach who's in his 30s. You know why? Because college football changes every 3 weeks. Like Ralph Friedgen wouldn't have that black book. You can't schedule anything out for a year in advance anymore because half your team is going to hit the portal as soon as the season comes to an end. You're going to have to bring in an entirely new roster. You can't schedule ahead. All you can do is react these days. You can be somewhat proactive, but you have to be on your toes. You can't sit there and be like, no, this is how we're going to do it, because they're going to tell you how it gets done, not the other way around anymore.
The other side of an argument here is Deion was an unprecedented hire. He had them in year 2 competing for a Big 12 title. And he got the full support of the university. He got the full support of the athletic department. Does
Steve's son play quarterback?
I'm just I'm providing context for.
I'm just asking, is Steve going to be the quarterback? Are they bringing in a number 1 5-star corner, superstar, unicorn kind of guy?
He might have Louis. He might have Louis luggage that he wants to bring.
I think
talent that wins.
I think Bill Belichick experience at North Carolina can lead to a lot of 3rd place finishes in the ACC.
Which is kind of what Mac Brown got you.
Yeah.
I think he could get 8-9 wins. 8-9 wins.
No, I think he get 10. A lot of 10-2 seasons.
Yeah.
Oh, excuse me, not a lot because he's not going to be there long. But and so that's the question is do you really it'll be fun. The attention will be insane. And when he leaves, you're going to look yourself in the mirror and say, was it worth it? It'll be a weekend at Vegas.
The difference, I think, in Deion, who had all this support, was Deion relates to today's player.
Yes.
His style, his confidence, his swag, his embrace. Give me all those cameras in the locker room. Let's have a concert. Let's have a rap. Let's have some rappers there before UCF. Let's do it after the game. That would concern me. And that's not something I asked Damian Harris about. And he was like, oh, I don't see it. And I do think that's why Saban got out. I don't think he related with today's player for the last several years of his tenure at Bama. I think it's harder than ever to kind of stay up. And I think Saban did a great job kind of adapting and still relating, but I think he finally lost it and was like, the players didn't respond because it was, they had so much more freedom to do other things.
I mean, I'm so ready for it to be over, just one way or another, because it's a story. It's the kind of story that, from people in our perspective, creates a lot of like, okay, we got to get ready to react to this story. So you've just been sitting on pins and needles. I'm ready for Bill Belichick to take his hands off my throat.
I'm surprised you guys didn't ask about my coaching book, my Bible.
Where's it from? Is it yours? Where's it from?
This is my offensive accountability. Look at that quarterback.
Oh, is that yours? You wrote it?
Manifesto right there.
That's literally yours? You didn't get the FSU job?
Just in case. I'm ready to go. I'm ready to interview.
Where do we say, our friend Ryan in the tailgate, I know Bud has a manifesto.
Bud absolutely does. He's got about 5 of them.
It's all about CLV.
Yeah. Yeah, that was another joke I saw fly around. It's like, oh, so when Belichick does it, it's a Bible, but when Connor Stallions does it, it's a manifesto.
That's a great point.
All right. Any other sort of final thoughts here? Because again, like, fluid situation. Bill Belichick, they could announce him as being the next head coach this afternoon, or they could announce he's withdrawn interest. There are other candidates that they would move on to, but when it comes to discussing actual contract details, as of yesterday afternoon, this was the only one they've got their sights on. But there are other names on the list that were part of that. It goes like 30 names. Then they got it down to like 10 to 12. And then of that 10 to 12, they're like, Summerall pulls his name out. Campbell declines to speak. Like, you've kind of narrowed your way to at least going through the priority list.
Who are we down to?
This is not intel. This is just me kind of connecting my own dots. Reports today that West Virginia is going to announce their coach in the next 24 hours. Everything I'd heard was Rich Rod and Monken. Monken has a pretty big game on Saturday. Mm-hmm. So if they're announcing it within 24 hours, makes me feel like that's going to end up being Rich Rod. After Monken plays on Saturday, maybe he becomes a little bit more available in Chapel Hill. And we just keep playing this game and rolling it out, and then done.
All right, we're deep into this. So if it gets clipped as a VOD, you're going to really have to watch it to get to this. Did y'all see the report that Belichick may have been offered the job by someone who doesn't have the ability to actually offer the job?
Yes. I believe it too.
It's getting closer to Tennessee.
That's my point. That's where those comparisons, like from coaches, agents, that's where those comps are coming from. The Auburn, Tennessee, because there is legitimate belief that the person who offered the gig has no right to offer the gig.
Oh, buddy. Oh, man. Okay. Well, we'll see. Coming up on the other side, we'll continue to look at the coaching carousel. Mentioned West Virginia, but also some interesting coordinator moves, Day Train Danny, and more. Next. Back here on the Cover 3 podcast. You mentioned the West Virginia job. If we were taking bets here, we think that's going to end up being Rich Rod?
I'd say 51% chance.
51?
Yeah.
Who?
You never know.
Let me get out Polymarket.
You know who I like for that gig? I like Rich Rod. It would be a solid C+. But you know who else I would give a solid C+ to? Anthony Becht. Former Mountaineer.
Yeah.
You talk about bringing your own Louis. Hey, Rocco. Hey, son. Come on over. Let's reunite. I had seen that he had wanted that job. I think he's talked to him. I think it's probably going to be Rich Rod, but I think he's going to be a really good hire for somebody someday. He's won championships. I know it's XFL, but like, he's been taking this coaching track that way. I think he'd be a solid hire if the Rich Rod falls through.
I don't hate that. Have you talked to him? He's your guy, right?
Yeah. So I have. I think he'd be great.
Yeah.
I think he'd be great. I don't know if he would bring Rocco. I don't know what
Right,
West Virginia's interest is. I know that he's interested because he wants to kind of take
Alma
that
mater.
next step along the coaching ladder. So I think it's great for him that even if he did get to interview, it's like a step. Maybe it puts his name out there. But I think he'd be really good.
Very cool. Yeah, I don't have well-placed sources at Jacksonville State, but my sense is that at Jacksonville State, they're like, oh, okay, all right.
They
Well,
know
yeah,
you can't be upset at that.
Yeah, thank you for the Conference USA championship. You know, you guided us into the FBS level. You got us a league title, and now he could be off. That again could be getting made official here, as Tom mentioned, in the next 25 to 48 hours. Not to go all North Carolina on this, but what do you think about Chip Lindsey as the new Michigan offensive coordinator?
He's going to really enjoy Bryce Underwood.
Because my allegation was that Bryce Underwood was going to LeBron this and get to pick the OC, and then Chip Lindsey was the selection, and Chip Lindsey has a long track record. You know,
He's been a lot of places.
He's been a lot of places. I can pick out performances and seasons and put them all together and hand that to you on a resume, and you're like, yeah, let's go. This is going to be incredible. But then, you know, it's been a little bit up and down, a little EKG meter out there.
You know what I think? The match makes more sense when you look at how Carolina ran the football the last couple of years. Like their commitment to the run game, I think that fits. That's what Jerome Moore's looking for. He's not looking for somebody that needs to use a lot of motions and try to find guys open. He wants somebody who's not going to be afraid to run the football. I think Chip Lindsey fills that for sure.
Yeah, I also think Sharon's still going to have a hand in it.
Yeah,
I mean, that's like Sheridan got a lot of crap from Michigan fans because that offense was awful, and I'm not going to sit here and argue with their fans about whether or not he was a good OC or not.
Kirk Campbell.
Yeah, I'm sorry, Kirk Campbell.
Yeah, you had the other offensive coordinator everyone's upset at.
Correct. Sorry, my bad. I get them confused. All OCs look alike to me. But like, look at the quarterbacks he had to work with last year. He was dealing with 3 MAC quarterbacks trying to play in the Big Ten. Like, so that's my point. Whether it's Lindsey or whoever they hired, you're getting Bryce Underwood. I guarantee you their offense will be better.
South Carolina promoting Mike Shula, the offensive coordinator. He was already on the staff. He was an analyst. Yeah, analyst last season. Of course, he's replacing Dowell Loggins, who left to go be the new head coach at App State. This is important because Lenora Sellers, can you give me a little choo-choo? Yeah, because the Lenora Sellers, the Lenora Sellers hype train is going to be one of our big quarterback conversations going into the offseason and leading into 2025. As the conductor of the hype train, Tom, you approve of the move here?
I mean, I'm not against it, but it is like he was an analyst there, but ever since he was the head coach at Alabama, his entire career until he came back to be an offensive analyst for one season with the Gamecocks was in the NFL. He wasn't really calling plays anywhere too much as far as I can. Let's see. He was a QB. He was the offensive coordinator last time with the Giants in 2019.
I think your reference here is his work with Cam, because he was quarterbacks coach when Cam comes into the league. He was the offensive coordinator in Cam's MVP season in 2015. And I think that's the connect the dots that South Carolina fans are going to do to get really excited about this, is to go back and look at the ways that Cam dominated the league when he was at his career peak in the NFL, and hope that some of that gets applied to a player who is not the same player, but equally electric in terms of the individual playmaking that he can do.
For sure. But it's weird. I don't know. Again, all offensive coordinators look alike to me. I think the talent is going to win out more often than not. I don't really think there are a ton of OCs out there who are legit difference makers.
I might push back a little bit on that, but I do think it'll get more important as the talent spreads out. Yeah, the parity. I think coaching matters more than it did 5 years ago. But it's not rocket science, like you said. I mean, shoot, listen to Luke Fickell. Remember him? Remember his comment when they fired Longo and they were like, who's going to call plays? He's like, yeah, it's all overrated. He's like, we'll figure it out. Well,
I mean, could have figured it out a little bit more. had a couple more first downs, and it has been a busy couple of days in the transfer portal. So let's jump on into the portal. A little bit of breaking news as we're live here on youtube.com/cover3. Austin mentioned right as we got going, how do we feel about Darian Mensah to Duke?
It goes from one smart school to the other. Nerd. No wonder his name's Mensah. No, I think it's a good landing for Duke. I think that's a good guy to get. Like, he's one of the top quarterbacks in the portal, and more important to me than anything, he's got 3 years of eligibility left. Like, if I'm Duke, I'm very happy to buy on what he is as far as production already and what he can continue to be in the future. Now, is he a huge upgrade over Malik Murphy? We'll see, but I don't think that if I'm Duke and what I saw from Malik Murphy all year, I'm not sitting there thinking, well, I can't improve on this. So if you feel like he is, it makes all the sense in the world for them to go get him. And clearly, considering Murphy hit the portal and then Mensah was in the portal seemingly for like 25 minutes before he ended up at Duke, seems pretty clear that Duke was very clear on what it wanted to do.
I think it's an upgrade over Malik Murphy. Malik Murphy was solid. I think Mensah could put up better numbers, but I think it's a great situation for Duke. This is a program that's coming off 9-3 season. Like, you want to maintain that momentum. I think you should be able to do that with this move. Like, I think there's a big worry. Like, how would we replace Malik Murphy? Because statistically, he was really strong. I think you get somebody who can maybe even do a little bit more.
Yeah, I'm not going to say that I like this result to the story and the way we talk about it, but when the initial news of Malik Murphy hitting the portal comes out, there was a response that it was like, God, like, this is what's wrong with the portal. You know, he goes there, he's there for 1 year, sets a school record for touchdowns, and then he's leaving again. You got to think he's just chasing the money, Malik. And I had a little sense that now seems to be coming true. Is like, yeah, well, maybe he was also told that you might not be the starting quarterback next season, and it would be better for you to go and seek options elsewhere, because maybe the Darian Mensah thing, because to your point, Tom, that boy hits the portal on Monday. He is with the he's getting called out by the Cameron Crazies last night, and he commits this morning. So, I mean, it does seem as though the Duke staff was interested in finding options that were not Malik Murphy at the quarterback position, as productive as he was, and Darian Mensah is their pick. Now, will that work out for them? That is the gamble that everyone is playing at this large poker table, where, as Tom mentioned earlier today to us, there might be more quarterbacks in the portal than there are depth chart spots at the power conference level. So we'll see what's next for Malik Murphy, but I do think that Mensah to Duke is good for the Blue Devils.
I also wonder, do you think that there's any chance the Summerall stuff kind of played an impact on Mensah's decision, in that he's maybe convinced his coach won't be there by the time his career is done?
Maybe.
Or Summerall also has plans to go get another quarterback. Because you know who else is gone? Kai Horton. Like, both the top two quarterbacks from Tulane have hit the portal in the last 3 days.
But his success, I mean, I don't know. I feel like Tulane was very close to, not far off from getting a playoff spot with Mensah as a freshman. I don't know why Summerall would be sitting there thinking I need a better QB.
We'll see. We've got also, I think this is interesting for the Jackson Arnold sweepstakes. We talked about Van Buren at Mississippi State. He's hitting the portal. That might indicate that Jackson Arnold to go reunite with Jeff Lebby might be a little more likely, unless there's somebody else in that state who wants to go get him. I mean, Tom, Danny, what's your thought here?
So, I work with Dusty in the morning on the radio. Dusty's Oklahoma. He's really tight with Jeff Lebby. He thought it was going to be Jackson Arnold reuniting with Jeff Lebby as well. Like, they had a great relationship built in the recruiting process. They've known each other for a while. So that kind of had been, our conversations had been like that. Matt Zenitz came on the show this morning as a guest, and he made a bet with Dusty where he was like, I bet you a lunch that he does not end up with Levy. And so, and like he reiterated it like 3 or 4 times, said he is not, like, I don't think he's going to go to Mississippi State with Levy. And Dusty was like, you sound so confident. I don't know if I want to make this bet because it sounds like it's almost a done deal that he's going somewhere else. And he did put Jackson Arnold as an Auburn target. But I thought was even more interesting is that he was telling us that Auburn is going to sign multiple quarterbacks this class, which I guess if you got the money to do it, I would too. I would absolutely try to have multiple quarterbacks. And I do think Ashton Daniels from Stanford is probably somebody who's not commanding top dollar. So that would be a, I don't want to say cheap, but cheaper option. And then you can go spend and get one of these other guys they're bringing in there today. I guess they're in visits today, right? Like the guys that are coming through Auburn.
I mean, when it comes to Jackson Arnold, like, it's obvious you connect the dots, Levy, Arnold, bam. You see it happen all the time. But why is Arnold leaving Oklahoma? Because the offense was an absolute mess. They had a bad offensive line, and he just didn't feel like it was the best situation for him. So why would he leave Oklahoma to go to Mississippi State when he'd be pretty much in the same kind of situation?
Or worse.
Or worse, exactly. So I think Auburn's more likely for Jackson Arnold. I think Ole Miss is more likely for Jackson Arnold because remember, like the offense that they're running at Ole Miss is no different than the offense that they're running at Mississippi State. Jeff Levy was a part of that staff too. So I think he's got plenty of offers. I do think that there's a good chance Ashton Daniels ends up at Auburn. I do think it'll also be awkward if they get 2 quarterbacks and they're paying them both transfer portal kind of money to be there because only one of them is going to be able to play. Although, maybe Hugh's got a new 2 QB offense he's ready to throw at the world.
I was thinking that when Bud said in our Bud said in our conversations at the end of signing day that Auburn had missed out on a few recruits in a way that only reinforced his belief that the money cannon is loaded for when they, so that, if they do want to go overpay just to have 2 quarterback options, that's something that they could be going for. What other transfer portal sort of news or buzz has got y'all's attention?
There's just too many. It's too hard to follow all of it. Like,
it really is.
Transfer portal palooza the other day on 24/7 Sports. And I hope everybody who was involved with that takes a week nap because, like, they were on air for 6 hours. Every 20 seconds, there's like 17 new players hitting the portal. Fernando Mendoza went 98 yards with the boys, cried, and now he's in the portal. It's like Luke Kromenhoek, Florida State. He's in the portal. Everybody is hitting the portal. Like you mentioned it earlier, Chip, there are more quarterbacks in the portal than there are on rosters right now, seemingly. I hope you got spots.
Oh, one other thing from Zenitz that I thought was very interesting, and we've mentioned this a couple times on here. The portal may be a 30-day window, but he said he expects there to be another, when the first round of the playoffs ends, you'll see another influx of players from the playoff teams.
Mm-hmm.
And he kind of like hinted at some bigger names, which we were like, come on, you got to give us something. Like, we wanted him to say Arch Manning, obviously, or Quinn Ewers, but like that could be a possibility for Quinn.
Ryan mentions this too. This is somewhat interesting. USC's like, they've got like 3 receivers in the portal. What the hell's going on there?
Oh man,
they clearly aren't thrilled with the situation.
You guys got to be where I've gotten burned a couple times. Thankfully, I haven't retweeted or put anything out there, but it feels like the fake accounts that are putting out news. Like I saw somebody had, Ryan Williams in the portal. I was like, oh, what? And then it was fake. Like there's just a lot of fake stuff with the fake accounts. So be careful out there what you fall for.
I thought Ryan Williams was trending for another reason.
Oh,
I thought he got screenshotted.
Oh, I think he did too. Yes. I think so. Maybe that was him distracting everybody from that. I was like, oh yeah, let me just play with him. I think I'm going to the portal.
Who doesn't love a water park?
Those hormones are raging. He's a 17-year-old.
All right. Coming up on the other side, we'll get a market report from Day Train Danny, an outlook in terms of the Heisman Trophy picture going into the award being handed out this weekend, and more next.
CBS Sports HQ, giving you college football coverage unlike anyone else.
We're talking Big Ten.
Pre- and post-game coverage.
Are you encouraged with the way that this team responded?
Along with breaking news.
A lot of movement in the rankings this week.
Highlights and expert analysis.
That streak could be in jeopardy here.
Sure. What was your main takeaway from this game? How impressive was his domination?
That really changed the football game.
Let's go ahead and have some more fun.
Another wild ending.
The chaos continues.
Turn to CBS Sports HQ.
All right, Cover 3 Tailgate. It's time to get activated because we are a finalist for the Best American Football Podcast category in the Sports Podcast Awards. You all have supported us before. We have been finalists before, but this time, this year, we are going for the title. And here's the reason why I think we can do it is because this is all based on fan voting. So to help us bring home some hardware, use the link in the episode description here on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts. The whole process should take you about 30 seconds. We'll also include the link. The episode description will offer some QR codes. This is all a fan vote. So please, please, please show your support for the Cover 3 podcast in the Sports Podcast Awards. We are a finalist in the Best American Football Podcast category. Also, January 9th, history will be made. The first ever Cover 3 Tailgate Live. We will be at Tannehill's Tavern and Music Hall in Fort Worth. The show will be from 5 p.m. to 6:30 p.m. Central. That is leading right up to the Orange Bowl that night. It is the day before the Cotton Bowl in Arlington the next night. So if you're going to be in town for either one of those games, or even if you think your team might be headed to those games, scan that QR code because RSVP don't cost you nothing. The RSVP is free. And we would love for you to come out. You know what? Like, even if your team isn't even in a daggum bowl game, what would be more fun than being able to come out to Tannehill's Tavern and Music Hall to hang out for the first ever Cover 3 Tailgate Live. Again, scan that QR code. We will also have links so that you can do that in the episode description. So again, this is when we need y'all, because the fan vote for the Sports Podcast Awards is based on y'all and filling up Tannehill's Tavern and Music Hall for what should be an electric night of the Cover 3 Tailgate is just, I mean, this is y'all. I mean, we're going to be there. We're going to have an awesome time. We're going to do a live show. We're going to watch the Orange Bowl there, and we can all hang out together. So definitely hit that QR code, hit the links, and come and hang out. Meet us in Fort Worth.
I heard Bud's buying drinks.
I did.
Okay. Yeah.
Max, shout out to Max that he lives 10 minutes away. We'll show up with TCU merch for the boys. Let's go, Max.
Let's go,
I'll buy
Max.
Max some drinks.
I appreciate. Yeah, we listen. There's a spicy margarita with your name on it. You know, that's we'll slide it down the bar.
A little tahini on the rim. Yeah.
Well, let's go. All right, let's take a look at the market. It's Day Trade Danny.
All right, let's open it up. I am going to buy Kenny Dillingham. I'm buying his philosophy on bowls, specifically in the playoffs. Did you guys hear his comments? I thought he was so he's a younger coach. I remember early, maybe it was this offseason when everybody was complaining about portal and freedom of movement. He was like, who cares? He's like, we're all dealing with it. We all get paid millions. Just bring it all on. Like, he's always had a very forward-thinking, player-friendly approach. He was asked about players entering the portal like before the playoff game. And he said, good. He said, we are going to help our players that want to transfer find a place to play. He said, I just want my players to be honest with me, tell me what their intentions are, and we'll even try to place them, because he was basically admitting we can't afford some of our players. If they want to try to fund somewhere better, we'll do it. He said, but I want them to do is let me know so we can all be on the same page. And I want you here. He's like, I still want you to finish the season. He's like, let's finish what we started. I get that you have plans that you want to take on after we're done, but let's finish what we're starting. I thought it was pretty forward thinking. I think it's the way that a young, confident coach who is not old school, because I might be the one that be like, hey, you want the portal? Your mind's not here. Your mind is elsewhere. See you later. Don't let the door hit you. But I think with the depth issues they might have with some of these other schools they're competing against, I think it's a pretty brilliant approach for Kenny Dillingham. Not to mention why it's smart is because then you can know what your roster is going to look like ahead of time. Like you can already put this on your player personnel department, say, hey, these 5 guys said they're going to transfer after the season. Let's start preparing ahead of time. I thought it was very forward thinking. That's why I'm buying. I mean, no surprise we're buying Kenny Dillingham as the year he's had, but I'm buying his approach to the way he's treated his players in the portal.
I agree. Also, he's trying to play 3 more games, so he needs that depth.
Yes.
You can't be losing half your roster to the portal. Like, hey, hell yeah, you can join, but stick around.
Yes, exactly.
Did you hear that he heard from his leadership council that they should be doing those meetings before the Arizona game? Like the team, like the veteran leaders, like whoever they've like had as their, but every team has a leadership council.
Yeah.
But he was like, the players came to us and were like, hey, before we even get to the regular season finale, let's like start having your exit interviews right now so that everybody can be honest. And so that backs up sort of what you're talking about in terms of his approach. He is going with a fully transparent kind of approach to handling the locker room. I like that buy for sure.
All right. So you might be buying high. Here's another buy high. I'm buying Indiana, not only for this season, but for the foreseeable. Tom has mentioned this a couple times. I have been surprised. Did you guys happen to see the numbers that came out of the NIL funding that the NCAA put out? So top of the list was actually Texas. All we had heard about was Ohio State's $20 million roster. Texas quietly has had a $22 million roster. I'd be even like, that's completely flown under the radar, but that's not the point I wanted to make. No surprises at the top. Texas, Ohio State, LSU checks in another $20 million roster. Again, we've only used $20 million to talk about Ohio State, which is kind of interesting. Georgia up there at 18, A&M, Michigan, Bama, Florida, Clemson, Oklahoma, Penn State, and guess who's next? Indiana, $13.6 million for their NIL allocation. I was not aware that they were this invested in athletics and specifically football. I mean, when they locked up Kirk Cignetti, you're kind of like, well, they have to, but they don't have to keep spending this money, and they've shown a commitment that they want to be good. I think Indiana is no longer going to be a bottom dweller in the Big Ten because of this. You have to buy the players, and if they're showing that appetite, I'm buying them because I love the coach. We clearly will love what he's been able to do. I think Indiana's here to stay.
Number one, I would like to see more than a screenshot of that list. Right? I'm not questioning the veracity, right? The teams involved and the figures involved do more or less line up with a lot of like hearsay and conversation that's always been going on. But man, we're getting a lot of run out of a screenshot of something where
Are you saying I got fooled?
No, I'm not.
I might.
I mean, we've I think it's
I thought it was an NCAA list, right?
That's the way it was presented, for sure.
Well, the other thing, my first question was, how do they know? Like, are those numbers reported?
I know that the NCAA would like to be able to get reported numbers. I had not heard that any collective is required to turn in all of their numbers.
Listen, whether the numbers themselves are accurate or not, the overall point is that Indiana is spending a lot more money on its football program. Whether they're ranked 10th or 15th or 20th, wherever they actually are, they definitely are. And they're definitely getting more bang for their buck doing it in football than they have been in basketball.
People are already calling out my reporting skills. Fake news, Kanell.
No. I mean,
I'm not a reporter. No, you're probably, but I am curious. I'll have to do a little more research on that. I just wanted to make the point because Tom's made it and I saw it. I was like, oh yeah, dang it, Tom's right on this one. And it's great news. This is great because one of the things we always said was with the NIL era, it'll give a school that traditionally has not been good if they want to be, and they've done things the right way. Maybe they didn't want to cheat. They didn't want to risk getting a violation from the NCAA. Now they can do it above board. Indiana sure feels like that could fit the bill. So here, I'm going to tell you guys, I'm going to make a sales pitch, right? So I am GM Danny Kanell making a case to my shareholders to raise some money. In the NFL, so we are getting more and more alike with the NFL, right? We've heard that comparison. Like we're turning more into the NFL. What is the theme in the NFL, I would say the last 7 or 8 years has been there are two ways to win Super Bowls or to have Super Bowl contending teams. One is if you have Patrick Mahomes, right? That's a pretty good one. I am not selling you on that philosophy. What is the other philosophy where they talk about teams with a window of when they can win?
Young
Rookie quarterback.
Yeah.
Rookie quarterback contracts.
Mm-hmm.
What do they all have in common? You don't pay them a ton of money. If I was building a team, I would buy on a philosophy that you find a good quarterback. I don't think I would go out and buy the highest rated, most expensive quarterback. So I am selling the highest paid, highest rated transfer quarterbacks, buying on good quarterbacks. And even more so, I would buy the G5 ballers. Guys like Darian Mensah, we talked about him before. Curtis Rourke, we saw multiple years of what he did at Ohio before going to Indiana and tearing it up there. And here's what I was saying, because I think there's only one from last year's class that really was like the money was well spent. And I don't think it's Will Howard. I don't think it's Dylan Gabriel. I think it's Cam Ward. I do think if you had, and this is not a knock to Dylan Gabriel, but I think he is helped incredibly by the talent around him, right? I think he is a quarterback. We'll see what they get out of Dante Moore. We'll see what they get out of the next quarterback they go with. But that roster is pretty talented. The offense, he's got weapons all over the place. I don't know if there's that much difference. They could have spent 40% less, 30% less, and got the same production. Now, good for them. It's working. I'm just saying as a philosophy, I don't think I would go just try to buy a guy. Even Riley Leonard. Riley Leonard's been good. We'll see if he's been great and if it's worth the money. But if they're a first-round exit or maybe a second-round exit, we'll see, because he hasn't put up the numbers that you would expect from a guy that you paid a lot of money to be your quarterback.
I agree with you. The we'll see for sure, because as we're playoff discussions are in the past, but what's the best defense he's faced? He is going, you are expecting Riley Leonard to be a difference maker against the best teams in the country. And they obviously got the win at the beginning of the season against a really good team, but they're going to play better teams and better defenses here in the college football playoff. And that'll be a real test of that. Also, Riley Leonard didn't have good numbers at Duke. He was just a good player.
Right.
So,
but he became a hot commodity on the market for something
sure.
Because of the upset against Clemson was on the national stage. The Notre Dame game was on the national stage before he got hurt. That was a big one. So that's my one philosophy. Are you guys buying into that? Because I think you surround a good quarterback, you spread out the money, you build up your defense, you build up your offensive line, your weapons, you spend your money elsewhere, and you get a good quarterback.
I think I go for Patrick Mahomes first.
Yes.
If I don't get Patrick Mahomes, then I take that philosophy. I'm not trying to buy one C QB.
Right. The problem is everybody thinks they know, like Bryce Underwood, he's supposed to be the savior. How did that work for Nebraska? Now, Nebraska doesn't have the resources. I think he goes into a better situation with better surrounding talent because of the history of recruiting classes. I'm kind of nervous for the Bryce Underwood situation in year one. It might work in year two. Kind of nervous that it doesn't pan out the way people want it to.
I think it worked really well for Nebraska. You got a true freshman. You couldn't expect him to come in and just completely win the Big Ten right away, but he did end your 7-year bowl drought. I think it's worked very well for the Cornhuskers. And I think that if you're Bryce Underwood, will he show up and you'll win the Big Ten again and compete for national title? Maybe not. But if you get to keep him for 3 years, you might do it again by the time he leaves.
Let's see what happens with Arch Manning, because that might be again, the school at the top of the list. Not everybody is going to be able to beat Texas in this scenario, but if you can get the blue chipper and then be able to, because Quinn Ewers originally was a transfer quarterback. He's been there forever, but if you can get the blue chipper, if Michigan can go get somebody to start next season and then work that blue chipper into being ready to go, that that one might be a play that I would go for, just because they would have been in your system. They would have understood. They would have been with their teammates, like all the sort of the external stuff. For all the Dylan Gabriels who jumped in and immediately were able to take control and join that family and join that program, I think that there's a lot of situations where it doesn't break that way.
All right, next philosophy that I am proposing to you guys. I am selling programs. I'm not buying players from programs that could afford anybody they want. So, for example, Connor Wegman. And obviously we saw him benched. They probably want to go in a different direction. What about a Brock Vandegrift, who Georgia could have kept? They could, if they would have looked at him and said, yeah, we think he's worth, potentially starting, they would have kept him. Same thing with Bear Alexander, who now has been, is in the portal again after another USC, another program that probably could keep him if they want him. I am not buying those players. Trust me, Florida State just took a bunch of players from Alabama, another program that probably could have afforded them if they wanted them. I am buyer beware of buying players from programs that could keep them if they wanted them. Now, I get there's going to be outliers, and there'll be some players that maybe they just weren't happy. Maybe they didn't like their coach. But the most time, the good players, they're going to keep them. So I'm not even getting in a bidding war with them because they're like, hey, they can get them. But if there's a player that leaves there, I'm going to stay away from them.
I think it's situational. Like if you're a player at Georgia and you're an offensive lineman and you've got a guy ahead of you who's probably going to be there for 2 more years, maybe you're leaving and they don't want to spend money on their backup guard or tackle if he's not going to start for another 2 years, but you could probably still be a pretty good starter elsewhere. Because I think you see a couple of those guys in the portal this year that I think are going to end up at other Power 5 or Power 4 schools and be pretty okay. But I think if you are, to your point, maybe skill position players is more of a sell in that. Like, I don't want to get a QB or a receiver who couldn't crack through the depth chart, but if it's a young offensive lineman, I think I'd still be interested, or defensive lineman, that kind of player.
An outlier for that philosophy is Caleb Downs. Jerry put it in there. He's a player that, hey, Bama maybe was trying to keep him and probably could have. And, that to me was more of a bidding war than it was Bama couldn't keep him. They just realized, hey, we're not going to get in this thing.
Yeah, Caleb was already proven, like before, like he hit the portal. He was already like, holy crap.
Yeah, so he was our CBS Sports National Freshman of the Year.
Yeah,
right.
That was just a guy who's like, I have market value. Let's find out what it is. And his coach had just retired.
A couple coaching buys, and we've already mentioned these, but there was one sell. So Barry Odom buying to Purdue, Willie Simmons buying to FIU. The one sell that I had, and I love this guy. I think he's been great. I think he's brought a lot of success. Mike Gundy reworking his contract to stay at Oklahoma State. I don't know if that's going to work. And I get it. Like, I appreciate that, that sounds like that was pretty contentious. They wanted to either, make him take a pay cut or fire him. And it worked for Michigan. So I do appreciate that he was willing to do that. I just don't know. We were talking earlier about coaches that adapt to today's player. When he's out there right before the season, and I understand his point about, hey, no one else, we're not getting more pay raises now. It's time to show up.
Tell your agent to quit calling.
Yes. That I don't know if that translates. So either he has to make some serious changes to his philosophy, or else I don't think this is going to end pretty, which kind of sucks. Because again, he's had a phenomenal career at Oklahoma State. It just feels like it's dwindling somewhat. So I'm selling that restructured contract.
It is incredibly appropriate for a man who enjoys, just sort of like the risk, the variance, hunting rattlesnakes, that he just hired Todd Grantham as his new defensive coordinator. So they're either going to win the Big 12 or they're going to go 3-9 and he's out. So it's very much, that's the game it seems like the Cowboys are going to be playing.
Man's a king in his own kingdom. That's how he looks at it.
Yeah.
Yes.
100%.
Can I, you got any more left, Danny?
Nope. That's it.
Can I sell something?
Yeah.
Actually, I can't sell it, but I could implore the great people of the state of Ohio to sell it. I am not going to put this on Ohio State fans. I am going to put this on Ohio State Representative Josh Williams, because he is the one who put this to the, whatever. It's not Ohio State fans. But Ohio State Representative Josh Williams of Sylvania Township introduced the Ohio Sportsmanship Act which would make it a felony for anyone who plants a flag at midfield at Ohio Stadium. What he wrote in the bill that he has proposed, which is not going to pass, by the way, so don't get whatever. This isn't going to happen. But he wrote, no person shall plant a flagpole with a flag attached to it in the center of the football field at Ohio Stadium of The Ohio State University on the day of a college football competition, whether before, during, or after the competition. Whoever violates this section is guilty of a felony of the 5th degree. A violation of this section is a strict liability offense and blah, 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 whatever law codes, whatever. Vote this dude out, or you are just as soft as he is. If you are voting in this township and he comes up for election, don't let this baby be in charge of making the rules and the laws in your neighborhood. Just get him out of there, and do not let this represent who you are as a fan base.
I buy that. I buy your proposal. I buy your message. That is what you Ohio State fans need to do. Get him out. Because that is not representative. That's not the toughness that Ryan Day's looking for.
No.
You know?
Awful. Did you see the Georgia representative before Congress when he went up there and said he said it was his petition to get Texas kicked out of the Big 12? Did you guys not see that video? Oh, it's pretty hilarious. And the guy has the most Southern accent you've ever heard. Like your prototypical Georgia state representative. And he's like, I recommend to this committee that the Texas Longhorns be sent back to the Big 12 because after beating them twice and dominating them in overtime, it is shown that they cannot compete in the SEC. Like, he goes on this whole rant about how Texas should be sent back to the Big 12. And then he ends it with, go Dogs. I yield my time. It was unbelievable. So unbelievable waste of taxpayer dollars, but that's besides the point. It was thoroughly entertaining. And unlike the Ohio one, I think he was doing it in jest.
Yes.
The Ohio one is lame because it felt more serious. But although I will say this, if you're the Ohio guy and you put that bill forward, you just should put in there for the felony that it is punishable by death. Like, why? Just put in there, it is, if you get caught planting a flag at Ohio Stadium, it is the death penalty. Like, just go all in, because like any sort of, 30-day window you could get, put in jail for is not enough. You need them put to death. Like, they need to put forward the death penalty.
Death by pepper spray.
All right. Well, do you know what's happened in the process of us having this conversation here on this
Belichick
podcast? The University of North Carolina Board of Trustees has called an emergency meeting where it is expected they will discuss the approval of a new contract for the new head football coach.
Condolences.
So it's
happening.
It's happening.
It's happening. This is so great.
We'll be in touch. Yeah, I mean, nothing's done until it's done. Our colleague Richard Johnson had a great line. We've been going back and forth all throughout this process. He said, this man resigned on a napkin. He is not your head coach until he's on the sideline Labor Day weekend. But yeah, the University of North Carolina Board of Trustees emergency meeting scheduled for today, Wednesday, where it is reported the expectation is they are going to discuss the approval of a contract for a new head football coach. So Chapel Bill era. Here we go. All right.
So is Bubba stepping down?
We'll see. We'll see. Hey, we'll see. Lots to learn, lots to find out. We'll be in touch. And you can follow him on Twitter at Tom Fornelli. You can follow him at Danny Kanell. You can follow me at Chip_Patterson. Gentlemen, thank you very much.
We're on to NC State.